So just the discussion of, sorry, just getting my full presence back. Autobiographical kind of Jungian premises that you referred to. Well, but it seemed to me went a bit kind of fast to dismissing them, because was that sort of dismissal just because they're ambiguous? Because it seems that whether they're ambiguous or not, ambiguous in the sense that one autobiographical premise can have one of a number of different outcomes. I mean, whether or not, just because they may have a number of different outcomes, surely they're still part of the practical reasoning process. So is this just aren't they still a kind of contributor?
I mean, it's not an ordinary ambiguity. There are ambiguities of other sorts. So this is kind of ambiguity of relevance. So you're not, if somebody says, my aim is to get rich, what do you say? Okay, so in what guise is that consideration adduced? In what role is it adduced? There are two answers to that. One is it's introduced as a fact about me. The other is it's introduced as, if you like, a focus of my deliberation. Now this is not an ordinary ambiguity or a strangeness or anything like that. It's, as it were, two completely different ways to start off. So, one way is, here is a fact about me. It's like as I'm getting old. The fact about me that I've got to cope with somehow, and I don't know how to cope with it. And the other is, here is a thing to be done, and I'm looking for a method. And they are just completely different practical questions. So the whole shape and nature of the liberation that follows is changed according to how you take this first premise. Now, I mean, it's not that it's the first premise, it would be just as bad if it was the third premise. Look, I mean, if I could be persuaded that this was not such a big problem, I'm not, in saying these things about autobiographical, the ban on autobiography, this is not aimed at the Jungian or anything like that, though you could aim it at the Jungian, and Anscombe, I think, did. But for me, it's just a problem that we all have to face, and if you could persuade me that it's actually not such a bad problem, this would be great, because I've had one through it. Well, one reason is we may get this or may not in the afternoon, but it seems certainly relevant to my deliberation that my aim is what my aim is, and I'm not even apparently allowed to mention that. That's surely, you might think, an excessively dramatic ban.
Yes, that's
that's what you were coming from.
That's what I was worried about.
But that only means, I think, that you're not allowed to mention it in a certain way. I mean, the suggestion I have come to on this point, of which I'm not at all proud, is that with deliberation, you don't, as it were, start with, you have to start with a practical question. So my question might be, how am I to get a cow? How am I to get a cow? And then, as it were, you might say, if indeed I am to do that, maybe a goat would be better, but how am I to get a cow? And now the deliberation starts. So instead of having first premise, I want a cow, or my aim, a cow, I say, it's the other way around, my aim, a cow. So the practical question is, how am I to get a cow? That isn't a premise. It's, as if you like, it's the frame that the deliberation takes place within. And that it takes the autobiography out of it.
I guess just if I may just, I mean, the sort of continued worry is that in your original example, one of the examples about the drinker, right?
Yeah.
It seems like any kind of, so it may be really problematic to define exactly the role that his alcoholism or his desire to get drunk every night has in giving an adequate account of the reasoning process, but to jump from that to leaving it out seems to be entirely wrong, because it's always going to be an important. It's always going to be, whether we want to call it a premise or not, it's going to be an important shaper, isn't it? So it's going to be.
Yeah. Look, I know that.
So, no, I don't think so. So maybe I just haven't really...
Well, look, I mean, he said, here is a man who knows his own problem.
Yeah.
I want to get drunk every night. It is an unsatisfactory state of affairs. What am I to do about it? Now then, you know, so conceived, evidently this is going to be a consideration that he is adducing as something which, you know, then the deliberation is to be dealt with. So there should be I'll put it this way. I mean, here's the thought which which you're pressing me in the direction of that I've not had before, which is that you can't ban autobiography completely, but what you've got to do is to allow it when it's descriptive. So if somebody starts, you know, I believe that my daughter is out of control, that can only be allowed as a premise if it is autobiographical. That's to say, it's got to be, here is a matter of fact about me. It might just as easily have been, my wife believes that our daughter is out of control. That would be fine. The problem with the other way of hearing the premise is that you're looking through the I believe that to the thing believed, and then working from that. And that's the ambiguity, as it were. So perhaps the thought might be that I shouldn't ban them completely, but insist that if they're there, they are genuinely autobiographical, rather than transparent. Transparent, I mean, transparent. Yes, I mean, but your original pressure was not that, but just the general sense that surely the agent's aims are relevant to their deliberation and are not to be left out in your account of what's going on. To which I would say, yeah, but I don't want that they have that aim to be playing the same sort of role in ordinary cases where there's no challenge. It's not something peculiar about having that aim. So what I did to cope with that is to say that the specification of the game goes into the specification of the practical question. I take them out of the premises. That was the way I tried to do it.
Okay. Yes.
I think.
It's just a short follow-up, perhaps follow-up, I'm not sure, even if it is a follow-up, but it is about this autobiographic considerations. Mm-hmm. The parallelism, for me, I can't quite yet see the parallelism between I believe that everybody is out to get me, mm-hmm. which might be either true or false. It might be true, because there might be, I'm not saying that everybody is out to get me. Exactly, no, but there might be a fact of the matter where, for some reason or other, everybody, even if it is in a restricted domain, is out there to get me. So when I say that, my belief, what I believe by that believing, might be true. If it isn't, it perhaps might be good of me if I go to a shrink. To a psychiatrist.
Yeah, it is true.
But if it's true, I should try to
not go to the
But I don't see the parallel. I don't see how we can get parallel with. I want to get drunk every night.
Oh, really?
Because how can that be wrong in the sense that
it might not be so.
Exactly. How can you say, well, but you are wrong? You see, that's not the case. You go to a shrink and as we can do in the first case.
Right. But the thought was that the ambiguity of focus applies on both sides, desire and belief. So if one says my purpose is to that has the same ambiguity as I believe that, the same structural ambiguity. You can take I believe that as a fact about me, to be dealt with. Or you can take that P as a consideration as used as relevant to something or other. And that is an ambiguity of role. And the same applies to I desire, my aim is, I desire. You can take that as autobiographical, that's to say, I am in this state. Or you look through the state to the thing desired, which sets the focus for the deliberation.
That's,
I think that's
sort of true.
So,
But you don't disambiguate in the same way, do you?
you don't.
Disambiguate.
There is this to be said, that with the case of desire, it is not a question whether the thing desired is so or not. With belief it is, and that's because they have characters of the fifth and so on. That's true. But the point was not so much with belief that you might be wrong. That is true in the special case we adduced about believing they're all out to get me. But in other cases, it's not so much that you might not be correct about this, it's that your believing it is the matter of fact to be dealt with. So supposing I believe that I am a wonderful person, and I am a wonderful person, but I shouldn't believe that I am. So if I said, I believe that I'm a wonderful person, a wonderful person would not believe that they are wonderful. So I won't believe that in order to make sure that I'm wonderful. No, that is it's a joke, but even so, that seems to me similar.
May I just make a final comment on this? Because in the case of the wanting, of the wishing, in a sense, more than trying to describe or to state a state of affairs, if I may say so, I'm stating a goal.
You are
Stating a goal, a purpose. My purpose
to be done.
And you should correct, and to counter that goal, you should be able to correct the goal in a sense that you are not going to correct my false belief.
It's actually impossible to state a purpose. You can't do it. You can state that you have that purpose, or you can specify a purpose. That's what this is near me.
No, but that's...
but you can specify a purpose, but as soon as you state it as your purpose, you're in danger of the ambiguity. The ambiguity threatens. Because then the question is, there are two ways the reasoning can go. One is the straightforward way, and the other is that nobody in their right mind would have such a purpose. So I still feel that there's a problem here. But I mean, okay. I mean, look, I think this is a comparatively new topic, and it's interesting in this.
Yes, so I have two questions. One is more general. One is like, there seems to be a change from let's not do algebra, let's do geometry, right? And so my question is more generally, what are we going to be able to identify shapes?
Mm-hmm. To interdefine shapes.
To define
shapes.
That's my, can I make the other one? Because when you choose the other one, is okay, so the other one is, so this thing about we cannot have a reason for a particular act.
Yes.
Okay, so, but the thing is, it's not, if we're not dealing with just simple reasons that give us an act, right? And we're dealing with complex situations, right?
Yeah.
Where there are many reasons and in a certain way. So couldn't I say the shape of the situation asks me to do that action?
You could say it. All right, so I'll take that one first.
Okay.
I have a reason to pay back the money I borrowed from my son.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought about that right away. From my son. I have a reason to do it soon. the action that I do when I pay it back will be done on a Thursday, perhaps. I shall use a check, something a check. I will put a first-class stamp on it. I will do it reluctantly. Nonetheless, the action that I do, though it has all those features, it is only in virtue of some of them that it is favoured by the reason that I have. So it will have many other features, all actions. It's impossible for a particular action to be favoured other than as an action of a sort. There will always be lots and lots of other features. Just as there are for physical objects, they have many other features. So actions have. Now I know that they're irrelevant, that it's Thursday. No, nobody mentioned that in the reason, but that's the point. The reason that you can have a reason to pay it back on Thursday, but not particularly on Thursday morning. Now, there is a view in the philosophy of action, which is that there are no particular actions. John Hornsby. If there are no particular actions, then this contrast fails. But at the moment, I can't see how to avoid the idea that, my action was a Thursday morning action at 11:53, etc., and done with the right hand rather than the left. That was my action. So there are two things, and that's what's driving this. Okay? The idea that an action is a particular. No particular is the particular favoured by a reason, or the reasoning, because very many different actions would all have been equally good from that point of view. If you think there are no particular actions, that action is given by description in some way, and there are traditions in the philosophy of action that take you down that route, then you would not face this problem, because you'd be able to say there is nothing more particular than giving my son the money back by the end of next week. So I think this is, if you like, driven, therefore, can I intend a particular action? It's impossible. Intention cannot speak to all the features of the action. It's just beyond its grasp. I can only intend to act in a certain way where my intention gives a limited specification of how I am to act. And the rest of it is left up to me, and my intention is silent. So I'm feeling, perhaps you're more and more swayed. Most people will think the point is at least good with intention.
Okay.
But with acting for a reason, they're not so sure. But I think it's the same point both times, that you should not speak of, if you said he did what he intended to do, that is technically false. He acted as he intended to act, is true. But of course his action will have had lots of other features to which the intention was silent, as you'd expect. And that's fine. And when you act as you intended to act, there are many other reasons that you're bringing forward to decide to realize your intention in this way. So I decided, I intended to come to Lisbon, and is this a finger?
Yeah.
Do we do hands and fingers or not? Do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We do hands and fingers. Okay. Let's do fingers. Let's do fingers on this point, because this is obviously one of the points.
Yeah, it's a follow-up or two if I have the time. First, isn't there a tension between this and the idea that the practical reasoning will end up in an action?
No.
I don't see that question. Can you explain
Yeah,
why?
of course. You act in that light, but the reason leaves you a considerable range of free choice, or the reasoning is silent about any further features that your action might have. So that's simply left up to you, or controlled by other reasons that have not been made explicit. So when I sit up in the morning, I certainly intend to get dressed. That's about the limit of it. I don't intend to put on one thing before another. There are many things left over. And that seems to me reasoning should not expect to do more than that. It cannot get you to the particular.
But that's precisely the problem. It stops short of the action.
Well, why is it a problem?
No,
I agree that it's true, but that I maintain only. I mean, it isn't well persuaded it's a problem.
No, it's a problem if on the at the same time you were to claim that a reasoning will conduce to action and not stopping short from it. It's
right.
just,
but you can act in the light of your reasoning when you select one way of acting, which satisfies the demands of your reasoning among any other demands that there may be. So it is possible to respond in the way favoured. And many actions would be of that sort, and you have, as far as the reasoning goes, a completely free choice. And this is only to be expected. I don't see that there's a problem, unless, it's like this. The reasoning issues in action, I say. And you say, but it never takes you to the action. And the answer is, right, that is correct, I have to be careful. The reasoning does issue in action, in the sense that I reason and then I act, or I act in the light of that. The reasoning does not determine my action. So issuing it has to be understood in this nuanced way. The action that I do is of the sort that the reasoning called for, and that's all that reasoning can do to me. But that's a limitation.
But would it be the same, or if you were to say, for instance, that the reasoning ends in the intention to act, or in an attitude conducive to the action?
Sometimes that does happen. But sometimes the intention is no better. The intention to act is still, as it were, incomplete. And anyhow, I think that a reason to intend to act in a certain way is so because it's a reason to act in that way. So this comes this afternoon. But this is what I call the primacy of the practical. Practical reasoning is what drives this. And that is a reason to act in this way when the time comes. That's what it is. So when you recognize that, you have formed an intention.
Can I add the second follow-up, or is it not?
Go ahead.
Well, why not, for instance, why not accept that it's conducive to a particular action and take it, for instance, indexically? Let's say I have the intention to do this action. Is it possible?
In some respects, yes, but not in all. For instance, I can intend to act on the stroke of midday. That would be precise. I can intend to do it with my right hand. That is, so far as that goes, precise, but of course much is left.
Can I give an example? Let's say you're carrying the intention to pay back your son, and at a certain moment you meet him and you think, well, why not? And then you form the intention directed at that specific action.
Yeah, I call that an intention in action rather than a prior intention. I think it's standard in the philosophy of intention. It's fairly standard to distinguish between the intentions with which we act and our intentions now to act later. So when you do what you mean, when you act in a way that you mean to, that isn't That is, the meaning that is going on while you are doing the action. It's a bit of a control, purposefulness of the thing, purposelessness of the thing. But a prior intention is where I get a plan, pragmatic plan. That happens too. And the problem, possibly a big problem in hospital is how to understand the relations between these two. Not even sure what to say about two things. The plan that you form in advance does not seem to be the same sort of thing as the meaning to do it that is going on when you are doing it. But that meaning to act, did you mean to do it? The answer was yeah. It wasn't a mistake. That meaning to do it isn't what the plan was like. The plan was a kind of blueprint for action set up in advance, waiting for its moment. So we have a problem here of understanding the relationship between these things, which is not due to the fact that we use the same word in so many languages on both sides.